Hopefully you can all hear and see. So yeah, welcome to today's webinar. Sorry, I'm flicking forward too quickly. So today's focus is going to be on Microsoft security, and particularly as it pertains to the charity sector. So some of you might have attended Exquitech webinars before, but we do a lot of work in the not-for-profit or non-profit world. So this is something that we're pretty comfortable in and have a fair bit of referenceability for. I'm Hugh, one of the account managers here. I'm joined today by Matthew Essex, who heads up our customer success hub, otherwise known as managed services, also acts as one of our pre-sales architects here in our UK operation. Steve would typically join, but he is off at another meeting with a charity. So that was quite fitting. So yeah, he might be in contact with some of you afterwards. But if we get into it, what we're going to be covering, so we've got some great insights lined up. We're looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts and questions, but really we're going to look at the current landscape, where to start in terms of security frameworks, how Microsoft can help, how AI, buzzword of the moment, is evolving security, what we see, and then end with a little bit of a summary of who we are and any questions that you have. So, Matt, I think from this point I hand to you. You are on mute.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Hi, welcome everybody. It's great to be here today. I'm just going to take control. Perfect. So yeah, really what I want to do today is just give you a bit of an oversight on some of the areas here when we're talking about cybersecurity and some of the things we can do within our environment to keep ourselves nice and secure. So just bear with me. So let's talk about the state of security in today's world. The Microsoft Digital Defense Report is an annual publication that provides comprehensive analysis of the evolving cyber threat landscape. The report offers insights and guidance to help enhance security, stay ahead of your risks. And I just want to briefly cover some of the key takeaways from a report like this. So, number one, 600 million identity attacks take place every day. That seems like a very, very high number, but if we look at the report, it is genuine. And 99% of these attacks are usually just password based. So we have things that we can help with this, and the good news is that we have things like multi-factor authentication, and that helps blocks most of those password-based attacks because you need that secondary form of authentication in there. There's blurred lines between nation-state threat actors and cyber criminals. So what does that mean when we're talking about that? So basically, cyber criminals are conducting operations for financial gain and enlisting the aid of cyber criminals to collect intelligence on businesses that are out there. And this sounds like it's a really complicated way of people trying to attack our businesses, but most of the time, all this is just automated. And really, a human attacker would only really come into the environment once they know they can get into our environment. So it's getting harder to tell who's behind these attacks. As I say, most of the time it's just automated. We're just being attacked left, right, and center at all times. And it's really important to have oversight and visibility into what's happening into our environments at all times, so we can take actions to remediate it or close off those doors. So basically it's like, closing the doors, locking the windows, shutting the gate at the front of the porch and all those things. We've got to really try and lock down as much as we can here. So among customers, Microsoft has recently observed almost a 3 times increase in human-operated ransomware-linked encounters. So what does that mean to us all, really, in a non-technical way? Well, we've probably all heard of phishing attempts that come through. So emails coming into our systems, maybe they're pretending to be from Microsoft, asking us to reset our passwords. They're coming from somebody appearing to be from accounts, asking you to pay a bill. All these things are just out there all the time at the moment. So with phishing then, like in more than 90% of cases where attacks progress to a ransom stage, the attacker had leveraged unmanaged devices as well in our network. So this is things like people working on personal laptops, accessing business data, where we have no visibility into anything that's happening there. So this kind of underscores all the different ways that we can take a report like this and think about what is it we can do to help secure our environment so we don't have to be constantly worrying about this. One of the big things that we generally see is nobody knows what's happening until something's actually happened in our environment. And by that point, usually it's way too late. And for any of the businesses out there that may have already got things like cyber insurance and things like that, just having cyber insurance isn't enough, because if a breach does happen, the insurance company is going to want to know that you've taken measures to prevent these attacks as much as possible. Otherwise, there may be a chance that they don't actually pay out. So we don't want to find ourselves in that kind of position there. The first fight against impersonation in terms of these phishing attacks is getting significantly more difficult due to increasing ease of access to deepfake technology. Anybody out there who's been following the AI landscape will see that most of the models out there at the moment tend to focus on their ability to generate images and videos. This is getting really, really difficult to kind of spot now. Just a year ago, we were able to always spot that somebody had 6 fingers and things like that. But generally, over the course of the last few months, that those models have got so sophisticated now that it's just really important that we try and stay on top of all this. So I'm going to just go on to the next section here. So cyber threats have grown almost 5 times. So the speed and scale and sophistication of cyber attacks is increasing rapidly, and AI is only going to make this worse, unfortunately. When somebody falls victim to a phishing email, the average time for an attacker to access private data is just about 1 hour, 12 minutes. So as I say, a phishing email, we can put so much security in our systems, but us as end users are the weakest link in any of this. And phishing emails, because it's so automated, it just goes out in the thousands. You know, if you send out 100,000 automated phishing emails a day and just one person answers that email, then everybody's going to be focusing on you as an environment because you've become a very easy target. So the global scale is really, it's outstanding, to be honest. Microsoft is seeing nearly double the amount of password attacks, growing from 4,000 to 7,000 per second in the same time frame, year over year. The number of organized attacks against groups is increasing. Microsoft themselves are now tracking over 1,500 significant threat actors, and that's a 5-fold increase, like we mentioned just before, increase from the 300 they tracked in just 2023. So, as we can say, this all sounds like it's really scary out there, and it genuinely is if we're not taking care of our environments. But thankfully, there are things we can put in place to make sure that a lot of these doors are closed. So organizations are facing an unprecedented complexity. So I mean, if that wasn't daunting enough, everything is making cyber jobs harder. So we're always kind of chasing ourselves about what's next. We're trying to figure out what threats are coming. So and especially in the charity sector as well. So charities, we often see that they struggle with disconnected collection of fragmented tools. Generally, you know, we just try and grab whichever tool we can to do the best job of our ability. But what we're expecting is we're expecting to stitch all these tools together. We're expecting them to all work together. We want to make sure the data's flowing between all these different apps. And you can start to see where the cracks start to happen if we don't have control over our environments and what applications us as users are using. What I generally find from all the engagements that I've ever been in is us as end users will always go for the path of least resistance. So, hey, I'm working in my environment. I've heard this new tool will make this better. I'm just going to go off and use this web application. And before we know it, we've just got no insight into what's actually happening into our data within our environment there. The also thing that we're seeing as well, there's beginning to be a global security talent shortage. Basically, I think based on the latest data, the globe needs around 4.8 million more security professionals, and that's worldwide. And that would be a 19% increase over where we currently are. So you can see that with all the AI automation that's out there and the ability to attack us as organizations is getting easier and easier, our ability to defend ourselves against this is getting harder and harder. And then if you take all this information and you kind of add all this to a highly complex regulated environment, and we've got all this patching, updates coming out, all these things that are hitting us. And if we're not looking at what's happening, then we've got no way of knowing what to put in place to prevent these from happening as well. So Microsoft, they're tracking about 250 regulator updates per day around the world. It's just some really, really big numbers here that can become quite frightening if we don't handle it. So nonprofits are especially vulnerable to security threats. And why do we say this? Why is this true? So it is an unfortunate truth that cyber attacks are becoming more sophisticated, as I've mentioned, with bad actors growing both in number and skill. And as I say, those bad actors with skill is this prevalence of AI that's coming through now. I think we've probably all seen, if not in our own environments, but certainly on social media, about those badly worded emails claiming to be from Microsoft, but they got spelling mistakes in them because it may not be that person's first language or something like that, but the emails are just good enough to get out there really quickly. With AI now, these are being written in well-worded, they're able to copy official sources very, very easily. So it's just getting harder and harder. So nonprofits, what we're seeing is they're experiencing these trends firsthand, because if I was an actor, one of the things, sorry, if I was an actor, I'm not an actor, by the way. If I was a bad actor, and I was going to spend my time setting up and trying to infiltrate organizations to get their data or whatever else I need, I'm not going to go and try and attack a large banking institute that has so much money, where they're probably spending more money on their security posture than most of us do throughout the entire organization. You can see that organizations like the charity sector become quite an easy target for this. And one of the reasons why that is charity sectors generally take donations from people. They're out there taking information from people on the street, all these good things to help these charities to raise awareness and things like that. But now we can understand that we're holding all this sensitive data. What an attacker would really want to do here is getting into your environment and holding you ransom for that data. Do you want us to release that list of all your donors for the last year and things like that? These are the things that we really don't want to happen at all. And to add on to all this, obviously for the last few years, if not even more, remote and hybrid work is now completely the norm, not to mention the increase in popularity of bring your own devices. We're seeing a lot more workers use iPads, their own phones and things like that, especially if as an organization you don't have the budget to provide work phones and things like that. Then it makes sense to allow people to use their own devices, but we've really got to be careful about how we're handling what's happening of our data that we own when it's going out to these places. But despite this, many of the security tools out there are costly, they're inefficient, and they're very complex. And as a result, non-profits, generally for the ones we've spoken to, feel that they're not able to invest enough in cybersecurity. Facing this reality, then, how is a non-profit supposed to improve security within their budgets? Well, this is the big question, isn't it, really, for all of us? So, where to start? Okay, so we do have some things in here that we can talk about. I want to kind of say some of these are quick and easy wins, but not necessarily all at the same time. But there are things out there that really help us understand what it is to do. So if we're talking about cybersecurity and strengthening our security in our environment, one, you could come to somebody like us and get us to talk to you about all the different things that are available out there. But one of the key things that is already out there is the UK cybersecurity framework. Okay, this makes everybody's lives a bit easier, because if you go and search the National Cybersecurity Centre, it's full of a wealth of information in there about what we should be doing in our environment. So basically it's the blueprint. Okay, if you turn all these things on, it should help negate 99% of the attacks that can happen. So this section here is probably a bit more techie, but I really want to just make it kind of to understand what these frameworks are and what's actually happening here. So what is Cyber Essentials? So Cyber Essentials is a UK government scheme. It was launched in 2014. And yes, it is a compliance badge that you can put on your website, but it's not just a compliance badge, okay? It's a practical security standard built around 5 core technical controls that stop, generally, like I said before, the most common cyber attacks. And I'll talk about some of those pillars in a moment with you. There's also a perception that cybersecurity is expensive or overly technical. Now, I would tend to agree that both of those are true, but they don't have to be. And especially for small charities. But Cyber Essentials is actually the opposite. As I say, it's given us all that framework about what is happening in what we should be doing in our environment and why we should be turning those things on. And the first thing that I want to mention about Cyber Essentials is one, it is affordable. Certification starts from just a few £100s, and that's often less than the cost of recovering from a ransomware attack or a phishing attack. Now, I will tell you, depending on what type of breach you had, that is a lot cheaper than facing the wrath of having a breach and having to inform everybody, the governing bodies, and the ability to get your data back if it was ever stolen. So, but second, it's fairly simple, Cyber Essentials. It's designed to help all businesses of all sizes, whether you're just a one-person business or there's several hundred people in there. Cyber Essentials fits that entire stack there for us as well. So most of the controls are things you either already do or could quickly do with some guidance. And thirdly, it doesn't require enterprise level systems at this point. What Cyber Essentials does is covers off the most basic attack patterns that we could see and close down those doors so we don't have to worry about them too much. As I said, the scheme's built with small businesses and organizations in mind, really. And if you actually went in and had a look at what Cyber Essentials governs, you'll actually find that most of us are already halfway there. Just by using Microsoft 365, for example, it does come with like the basic security guidelines. It isn't enough, but at least, you know, if you're using something like Microsoft 365 already, then they have put things in place already to try and keep you safe and secure. So why does all this matter for charities? Okay, so protection for people, not just our systems. So, you know, we hold sensitive information. We all do as a business. We hold information on the people who work for us, the people we communicate with, about our staff, volunteers, service users, and as I mentioned before, even our donors. And if this gets in the wrong hands, the impact isn't just financial, it's reputational, emotional, and more than likely legal. Charities are being targeted. According to the National Cybersecurity Centre, 1 in 3 charities actually suffered a cyber breach last year, and most breaches happen because of simple issues, as we said, weak passwords, outdated software, or just staff clicking that malicious link. So funders, regulators and supporters want to know how to take data protection seriously. And Cyber Essentials proves that you're not leaving cybersecurity to chance. It's a visible government recognised sign that you're doing the right thing. So we said just at the beginning there that it isn't just another badge, but that badge on your website to say that you are aligned with Cyber Essentials and even certified if you go that far just makes anybody you work with know that you take this stuff really, really seriously. So Cyber Essentials can also open doors in this sense when we want to talk about that. Some government contracts require it. So if you're looking for a grant, you may have already seen that they require you to have some sort of certification. Some corporate partners look for it. It sets you apart, not just as a security charity, but as a mature, responsible organization ready to scale and collaborate. Again, this is the area where that badge does mean something to us. So how do we go all about this? So we really want to start looking at a baseline check. We want to review the 5 controls, see what you already have in place, and start making a project plan internally about what you're going to do to correct the areas where you may not be compliant with that Cyber Essentials. So once you've done that, you can do this as a self-review. If you don't have anybody technical within your business, it's a good exercise just to read through it and see what is required from you as a business. If you don't know the answers, then obviously there are people like us out here who can come in and help you with this. So yeah, get help if needed. There are trusted Cyber Essential assessors who can guide you or even manage the process for you. So you will see on the slide here, there is an IASME logo there. And that's the portal you would go to if you wanted to get Cyber Essentials certified. And in there, they can put you in touch with businesses who can help you with this process if you need it. So the IASME portal is really straightforward. You answer the questions, make any fixes needed, and submit. So there are 2 versions of Cyber Essentials. There is a self-review, and it's exactly that. You take that form, you go through, you answer those questions. Somebody will assess those questions and decide whether you are a pass or a fail. And that's it. You're self-certified. So obviously, you can put any answers you want down in there, but generally, if to make this process a success, you should answer everything as honestly as we can, so we know the gaps that we are trying to fix. So once you've got that, celebrate it. Once certified, display that badge, get it on your website, get it in your internal policies, let your users, your team know that you are Cyber Essentials. So when somebody wants to use this really fancy new AI tool, but it's blocked in your environment because you're unaware of it, then everybody is aligned as to why we're doing these things in our environment. And if that application does provide a benefit to the organization, then you can put things in place to review it, see if it has any return on investment, if it's a benefit to your company. And if all the checks come out, then we're able to go in and whitelist that application for our business users. And as you can see now, we start to have full visibility into it. So cybersecurity might feel like a challenge, and you possibly feel like you don't have the capacity for it, but Cyber Essentials flips that thinking for us. It's not really a luxury at this point, it's a foundation. And in today's digital world, it's just as important as locking the doors to your office that we do at the end of every day. So if we go to the next slide. So as we look at the actual regulatory requirements here, we can see that we've got GDPR, and this is the big one. I think most of us probably have heard of GDPR in some form or fashion, but let's clear up some confusion around data protection laws, especially for those of us working in UK charities and non-profits. You've probably heard the terms like GDPR, UK GDPR, or the Data Protection Act, and it can all feel a bit overwhelming, but really, let's have a look at what this actually means. So even after Brexit, the UK took the European GDPR and copied it into our own law here in the UK, and we now call it the UK GDPR. This is the main law that tells us how to handle people's personal data and how we handle that safely and legally as well. And alongside that, we also have the Data Protection Act 2018, or DPA for short. Think of the DPA as supporting law that fills the UK-specific details and gives our regulator, the Information Commissioner's Office, the powers to enforce it. So if the UK GDPR says, here's what you must do, the DPA says, here's how it applies to the UK. Now, you might also hear about EU GDPR, and that was the original where it was born out of. But unless your charity works with people in the EU, like donors, service users, or volunteers, you don't need to worry about the EU GDPR because everything in the UK one will cover you. However, just be bearing in mind that if you do work in other European countries or have any involvement with customers out there, then you need to make sure that you abide by both of those GDPR situations because you have to cover it. And this is the same for any company outside the UK that wants to work with you. You can also require that they comply with GDPR also when dealing with your data. And that's really important. So we have 7 pillars. So if we look at these, we have lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. So we must have a lawful reason for processing someone's data, be fair about how we use it, and be upfront with those people. And this is why privacy notices and consent forms matter. We've all seen it when we visit a website and it asks us to accept everything, and we go ahead, and most of us probably don't go in and read everything that's in there, but we either accept it or decline it, and we go about our day. Purpose, limitation, only collect data for a specific reason and don't start using it for something else later without telling the person. So for an example here, if somebody gives us their details to book a service, we shouldn't start emailing them marketing materials unless they've agreed for us to do that. So again, somebody could want to book in a consultation with me. I then pass that email over to marketing and say, this person seems to be a really good fit. Let's go and sell them a load of stuff through sending emails out to them. We're not allowed to do that, okay? None of us are in the UK. And we can be fined if we're caught doing that. So the other section, data minimization, and it comes down to it. We really only want to collect the data that we need to do or to conduct our business. And if we don't need it, we should not be collecting it. Because at the end of the day, if we have a word breach, we want to make sure that everything we have in our environment is only there and it's only required. The last thing we need to be doing is informing 1,000 people that their data was leaked and they've now got their passwords and everything out on the dark web, for example. Accuracy. We must keep data accurate and up to date. If a customer changes their address, we need to reflect that. Outdated info can lead to mistakes and mistrust. Again, people can come and ask you to give them any data you hold on them. So again, we want to make sure that all data that we do hold on people we conduct business with is, like I said, up to date and accurate. Storage limitation, we mustn't keep data forever. We must keep it for as long as we need it and as long as we're legally obliged to as well. So when it's no longer needed, we need to make sure it's deleted and it's deleted securely as well. Integrity and confidentiality, so security. We must protect data from being lost, stolen, or accessed by people who shouldn't see it. That means strong passwords, encryption, and secure systems. So again, we're coming back to closing all those doors, locking the gates, everything else. We really need to make sure that we're dealing with this, otherwise we fall into GDPR non-compliance. Accountability, and this is the big one. We must be able to prove that we're following all the above. That's where audits, policies, training, and documentation come in. Again, we never want to be in a position where we're now dealing with all this because something has happened. It's a bit like buying the insurance that you hope you're never going to use. Nobody probably wants to do it, but we really don't want to be caught without insurance when something bad happens. And it's all the same thing here as well. So let's have a quick look at what rights individuals or our customers, employees, or even our partners actually have under law. So we have the right to be informed. They have the right to know what we're doing with their data and why. This is usually covered in our privacy notices that we put on our websites. And we need to make sure that this is always up to date and it's available, and it shouldn't be too hidden away for users to go and find either. Right of access, they can request to see the data we hold about them. I mentioned that a little bit before. This is known as a subject access request, and we usually have to respond within 30 days. I would say if you don't have a policy governing this in your environment, I would suggest that that's quite a high one. The last thing you want to do is, if you have a data subject request, is having everybody wondering what it is they're supposed to do with it. We have to make sure that we're dealing with this the right way. So go and get yourselves a policy, figure it out, get it in your environment, and make sure whoever it is who's responsible for this kind of data request knows exactly what they're doing there as well. Right to rectification. If the data is wrong or incomplete, us as users can go and ask you to fix it, and you must comply with that as well. So again, if I went and did a Google search and found my data was out there and it was wrong, I can go to the company who's holding that and make sure that they update it so it's accurate as well. The right to erasure, so it's our right to be forgotten. In certain cases, individuals can ask us to delete their data, like if it's no longer needed, or they withdraw consent. So if I decide that I no longer want my data in your environment, I can request that that data be removed as well. And we have to make sure we're following these policies to make sure that happens. Right to restrict processing, and again, users can ask us to limit how we use their data. For example, do not delete it, but do not actively use it either. So I'm happy for you to have it in your environment as long as it's not being used for anything outside of what I've agreed to. Right to data portability. Again, they can ask us to send their data to another provider in a readable format. Think about switching banks or telecom providers. Again, normally we get like a put code or something that gives them the instruction that I want my data to be moved from one place to another. And the right to object. They can object to certain uses of their data, like marketing. If they say stop sending emails, we must stop sending emails, and we must have a process in place that enables us to do that quickly and easily. And it should be automated in all instances, really. And rights related to automated decision making. If decisions are made about someone based purely on automated processing, for example, algorithms, they have the right to challenge it or ask for a human to review it. So think about the whole new way that people are using AI to write their CVs, and then HR are using AI to review those CVs. We can go ahead and we could ask them to have a human see that if we know it's been reviewed by automation instead. So in short, data protection is about trust. It's about knowing that we are capable of working with our customers, our business partners, and we treat people's information with respect. We're only going to collect data that we need, we're going to keep it safe, and we're going to be transparent. And in this way, we all build confidence and stay on the right side of the law. The DPA isn't here to stop us using data. Data is really important to all of us, but it's there to help us use it responsibly and make sure that we are free from getting breaches and having that data stolen. So that's a lot to cover, but what can Microsoft do to help? So basically what we want to talk about is really here, like if you are already using Microsoft's tool stack, we need to kind of understand what Microsoft's different tiers, what their licensing options actually mean. So yeah, I'd just like to go through these really quickly with you. So if we look at the Microsoft license options for small to mid-sized organizations, so we're looking at the business tier and not the enterprise tier at this point. There are three core options we have here. So we have Business Basic, Business Standard, and Business Premium. And while they all offer great collaboration tools, the biggest difference lies in security and compliance and what these different tiers offer. So if we start with Business Basic, So this gives you access to core web services like Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, and all the other apps that we know from Microsoft. And for eligible charities, that tier is completely free for up to 300 users. And this is an amazing offer. It's a fantastic starting point, but it's really important to say Business Basic does not come with any advanced security whatsoever, and you would not be able to be Cyber Essentials certified with just using Business Basic. There isn't enough options in there for you to turn security on to be certified. Then we have Business Standard, and that builds on top of the Business Basic, and that adds our ability to use desktop applications like Word and Excel and those other ones. And it makes it great for knowledge workers. However, it still lacks that enterprise-grade security. There's no Microsoft Defender for our antivirus. There's no Microsoft Intune to manage our devices. And there's no conditional access policies to control who can access what and from where. So really, the only one that's available to us as organizations, if we want to utilize security in our environment and try and keep ourselves safe and get Cyber Essentials certified, then Business Premium is really the best option we can here. I will make a small note. You could have Business Basic, and then you could add on additional licenses on top of that to get you all the features. And that's perfectly acceptable. What you then do find is then you are the IT overhead of managing multiple different licenses for each user could become quite difficult, and you could find yourself in a position where this user hasn't been assigned a specific license for Intune and so on. So really, Business Premium covers everything that we need here. So Business Premium is the most complete and secure option. It includes everything from the basic and standard, plus it does include Microsoft Defender, really important to get our antivirus, that business grade antivirus, not the Defender that comes free on our personal laptops. It's a completely different product, but that protects us against the ransomware and advanced threats. It does include Entra AD, Premium P1, that includes our conditional access, our multi-factor authentication and things like that. And Microsoft Intune. And Microsoft Intune manages our devices at scale: Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Linux. That's where we configure how our devices are deployed to our users, what security is enforced, and whether those devices are compliant. For example, you may have a device that isn't running the latest version of Windows and therefore has gone non-compliant. And what we can do utilizing Intune and conditional access policies is we're able to mark that device non-compliant and then block it from accessing our data until it's been rectified. And all this is crucial for any organization that handles sensitive data, especially in charity, where, again, we're talking about real sensitive data that's possibly in your environment, and you cannot meet the UK Cyber Essentials using standard or basic. Only Business Premium gives you the necessary tools out of the box. Now, if you do use frontline staff or volunteers who don't need laptops or full office apps, maybe they just use a shared device or a personal phone, there is a more cost-effective option that's available to those users, and that is Microsoft F3 license, F for frontline worker, or you can bolt on security features like I mentioned before to Business Basic, like Defender for Endpoint, Entra AD Premium, and you can build up that security stack. It's whatever works for you as a business. But for simplicity and built-in compliance, Business Premium at £4 per user, which is actually below the Microsoft standard rate, is typically the most efficient route for almost all charities looking to do things securely and affordable. Bear with me. So how can you align to Cyber Essentials? So let's just do a little bit of a deep dive into here. So when we discuss the different areas of how Cyber Essentials kind of governs your environment, the first one will be firewall. So if you do have an office, then you'll traditionally have a hardware firewall in there, and that's your security guard standing at the front door of your computer or your network. It checks what's coming in, what's going out, and it blocks anything suspicious. So for an example, let's say your team runs a drop-in center and connects laptops to a public Wi-Fi. A firewall helps stop hackers on that same Wi-Fi from poking into your systems. Now, if you don't have an office and therefore don't have a dedicated firewall and you work from home, then this is where a software firewall comes in place as well. And we want to make sure all those firewalls are configured and they're secure. And you can use things like Microsoft Intune to configure that or automatically for us as well. Secure configuration, Cyber Essentials does go deep into secure configurations. So it means setting up your computers, your environment and software in the safest way and switching off anything you don't need. It's about being aware of what's in your environment, why it's in your environment, and then we need to make sure that all these things are fully updated. Within Cyber Essentials, that would mean that all applications, any operating system updates are all updated and aligned within 14 days of them being released. It sounds like a long time, but that can go by quite quickly, especially as those users who don't close down our laptops. I never close down Chrome, for example, and Chrome won't update until it's been closed. And then you could, before you know it, you're 6 weeks out of date from the latest version of Chrome, for example. So then we're gonna go and look at the next section here, user access control. So this is about who gets access and to what, making sure only the right people can log in and only do what they need. So for example, you wouldn't give everybody a key to the donation safe. You would make sure that only the people who needed access would have it. And likewise, not everyone should have access to payroll or sensitive beneficiary data, for example. So again, when we mentioned before, most cyber attacks start by stealing login details. If everyone has admin rights or weak passwords, a small mistake can lead to a fairly big breach there. Okay, let's go to the next one. So malware protection. Malicious software, viruses, ransomware, spyware. This is all the stuff that sneaks into our devices to steal data, lock our files or spy on you, basically. And yeah, this tends to happen without us knowing about it. At least with a phishing email, you'll have a funny feeling that something isn't quite right. You probably realize you shouldn't have put your password and email into that funny looking box on the website. But when we start talking about malware and what's happening in our environment, this is usually done by us downloading that cool new app we found on social media, and we thought that would going to really improve our working practices. What's actually might be happening in there is that application is infected with malware to come in and start analyzing what we're doing on our laptops and stuff. So we really need to be very, very careful. So again, Cyber Essentials really focuses on these areas here. And I did mention it before, updates. Patches, hot fixes, whatever you want to call it, just updates. We've all seen them. We all get annoyed when our laptop wants to restart and we're in the middle of a long document and we keep putting it off and putting it off. But it's actually really, really important that all of us are updating not just our software, but our hardware as well, drivers, BIOS, all those kind of crazy things that go on our laptop. It's all being patched for a reason. And that reason is usually to fix security flaws. Occasionally we may get a new update that gives us some more features and things like that, but generally we always want to be closing off those identified gaps in the security within those applications. So this sounds like a lot. As an end user, I'm not going to go around checking that Chrome's up to date, Edge is up to date, all these other applications I have are up to date. What we really want to do is we want to start automating this so it all happens anyway in the background. And that's where something like Microsoft Intune comes in to do that for us. So again, it's something that we don't have to worry about as such. We just know our environment is actually doing it, and then knowing where to go to get the reports to see that everything is being successful. So to wrap up on this slide here, Cyber Essentials is about building those strong digital hygiene methods, thinking about as brushing your teeth, basically, simple steps done regularly to avoid that major pain later. And with that Microsoft Business Premium, many of these protections are already built in. However, they are built in. It doesn't mean they're necessarily turned on. So you do still need to go in and configure them. You just need to set them up right. And that's where we can obviously come in and help if you wished. So let's have a look about how we can align to GDPR then very quickly before we move on to the next section. So GDPR is obviously a very dry subject, data protection, but it's actually really, really essential for all organizations, especially the non-profit space out there. As you know, UK GDPR sets out how we should handle personal data, things like names, addresses, health information, especially when it involves vulnerable individuals, staff, or donors. There are 7 core principles in the UK GDPR, like fairness. We mentioned all these before: keeping data accurate, not keeping it for longer than you need, and making sure it's secure. It also gives people rights like the right to access or delete their data, like we mentioned before. But again, if you're using Microsoft Business Premium, or you're looking to change to that kind of license in your environment, then you're already on the right track here, because it includes built-in tools to help you stay compliant without needing a huge IT team behind you. So let's break it down a little bit about what it actually does in there. So when we're talking about fairness, transparency, and accountability, Microsoft Purview, this is the stack that lets you track who access what data and when. You can also respond quickly to subject access requests using tools like eDiscovery. So if somebody says to you, "What data do you hold on me?" you can find it fast and legally respond. Just bear with me 1 second. Excuse me. Limiting how long and why you keep data. So Microsoft gives you policies to label and archive data correctly. You can set rules like delete everything in this SharePoint site after 2 years, or even store it securely, but don't share it externally. So again, we've now got some wrappers around our environment where we can actually start targeting specific SharePoint sites, teams, channels, things like that. And we can set rules around those areas, so you don't have to worry about what it is you're doing inside those environments. It's kind of set for us. Keeping data accurate and secure, and again, we talked about Defender for Business, and with Microsoft Intune, the two work really closely together. You can ensure only authorized people access sensitive files. Even if they're working remotely, devices can be wiped if lost, and threats like malware can be alerted on and blocked automatically. So we can be informed that an attack is happening, and we can also be informed what our systems are doing to prevent it and blocking it as well. Minimizing data access, again, using Microsoft Entra. That's their identity and access system. You can control who sees what. For example, volunteers might access general documents while caseworkers can see confidential records, for example. Nothing more, nothing less. And this also ties back to as well, we might not always want to restrict access to data for a security reason. It might be we just don't want to overwhelm our team where we're kind of digging through multiple layers of document folders to find that one specific document that we need. We just want to put the data front and center in front of people so they can get on with the jobs as fast and as efficiently as possible. And proving you're doing the right thing. So tools like Secure Score within your Microsoft environment and Compliance Score, they act like as your health check, okay? You can go into your security portal in Microsoft 365 and you can check these now. And it'll tell you how you're doing, and it'll give you recommendations and simple steps to improve it. And that's great. If you're ever audited or reporting to trustees, you can get all this information ready there as well. You don't have to go through a huge project to go and figure out how you find all this information. It is all there for you. And as I say, everything we've discussed here is all available in that Business Premium license or available as add-ons, depending on how far you want to go. So in short, by using these tools, you reduce your legal risk, you build trust with your service users and funders, and you save your team time by automating compliance processes. And it's not about becoming a data expert, it's about using the tools you already have to do the right thing, securely, efficiently, and responsible. So then really, before I hand over back to Hugh, I really want to have a bit of a delve into how AI is evolving security. So I did mention a little bit earlier on how AI is making it easier for us to be attacked. AI can also do the same thing for us and help us to protect ourselves as well. So I'm going to just cover off some things here about how AI is helping us or causing us issues. So if we talk about Microsoft's AI Copilot, a lot of organizations have been in a rush out there to adopt Copilot. It's a great platform. It's helping us do things quicker, more efficient. But it can surface hidden knowledge. It can surface any documents in your environment that it has access to. And there's become a growing concern about the kind of information Copilot can actually access. And more importantly, who it surfaces that information to. So Copilot is incredibly powerful because it draws on content across your Microsoft 365, your SharePoint sites, OneDrive, Teams, chats, emails, and it will generate responses from everywhere it has access to. But that also means any content a user has access to, intentionally or not, is actually fair game. So if we haven't told our AI what is allowed to be shared with the user who's asking for it, it will just go and share anything it has been given access to. It won't necessarily know that me shouldn't have access to HR data if it hasn't been told that that's the case. So I could go in and ask who's on the promotion track for next year. And if it hasn't been told that I'm not allowed to see that and those documents are available, it will go ahead and give me all those answers for me. So this means this becomes a real danger in our environment if we're going to start thinking about using AI. So if oversharing risks aren't addressed, they could lead to, again, we could access beyond what someone needs for their role. Think of a junior employee, for example, being able to see confidential financial forecasts, HR files, like I mentioned, just because the permissions weren't tightened on a SharePoint folder. Copilot doesn't break permissions, but if a user has access, it will use that content to answer in those prompts. Inappropriate sharing of content, information might be shared with people or groups it wasn't meant for, whether it's IP, client data, or personal records. Copilot responses can expose that content unintentionally, especially if sharing links or summaries are copied without thought. Out-of-date or irrelevant responses. Again, when we start thinking about having AI in our systems, we want to make sure all the data in our environment is one, needed, two, required, and three, it's actually up to date. Because Copilot will just go ahead, read all the data in there, and if the only file it finds is from 7 years ago, it will just go ahead and give you the data out there, and it might be incorrect or incomplete. So what that will do is break down trust in the AI that we're using, and then that could cause our users to go off and try and find that fancy new AI app on social media because it's guaranteed to do what our current solution doesn't do. And this is where we can start to see all those breaks happening in our environment. But with all that said, the good news is all these risks are manageable, but they require proactive maintenance and governance from us. By addressing oversharing, you can maintain user trust in Copilot outputs. We know whatever we ask it, we're only going to get the information we're allowed to see. We can reduce the chance of sensitive data exposure. Again, we really want to make sure that only HR have access to HR files. That's really important. And you can ensure your Copilot implementation aligns with your compliance, HR, and InfoSec policies as needed. And this is where tools like SharePoint Advanced Management, Microsoft Purview, and Entra ID, conditional access policies, all those things we talked about, they come in. They are all their own little individual security toggles that we can turn on and adapt to our environment, but they all start working in companionship with one another to make sure that, again, enough of those doors and windows are all locked and secured. So all these together, they come in and give us controls to clean up our permissions, manage our site access, and enforce data boundaries before Copilot exposes them to all our users. So while Copilot can transform the way we work, it's only as safe as the data it can access. Oversharing isn't just an IT issue, it's a business risk. But again, with the right visibility and governance in place, you can ensure Copilot works for you and not against you in this new world that we find ourselves in. So common causes for oversharing. So we've identified 6 specific patterns that contribute to unintentional data exposure. Setting privacy, site privacy, sorry. So a SharePoint site, we've set that site to public. What this means is when a SharePoint site is marked as public, anybody in your organization has access to it, regardless of their role. This often happens during team creations where users may not understand the implications. Copilot will go ahead and index these sites if the user has access. Default sharing option is set to everyone. That means when we do share a file, the first option that is selected is that anyone can view it, or everyone, should I say. So in OneDrive and SharePoint, if your tenant is configured to share with everyone by default, then the moment the file is shared, it's potentially available to your entire organization. And Copilot will treat that file as fair game for all prompts, even if it wasn't meant for wider distribution. Broken permission inheritance is another big one we see when a folder or library permissions break away from the parent site. So maybe you've got permissions at a site level to say this is nice, safe and secure, but we go in and we break the permissions on one particular folder, then we've lost track of how that site is being managed. It becomes very difficult to drill in and see who's got access to what and why they have access to it. And again, Copilot might not have access to that particular site, but now that folder has become accessible to Copilot and it can go in and retrieve data from there. The use of using everyone except external users. Seemingly convenient group. This is where we can add a SharePoint site and say there's permissions to be available to everybody in the organization except for external users. That sounds like it's nice and safe and secure at that level. But it does grant access to every internal user in your business, and this is a case of oversharing. And I mentioned before, again, not all sharing is down to being a security-related thing, but it's also about not overwhelming our team with loads of folders, files, documents that they don't actually need to do their job. And then files without sensitivity labels. So yeah, if we haven't deployed sensitivity labeling within our environment, then there's no metadata telling Copilot or compliance tools how to treat that content. So if you hold driving licenses of applications or passport documents and things like that, we really want to be labeling those documents as highly sensitive and therefore not being able to be surfaced by AI unless we specifically tell it to do that. And then files with no classification or ownership. When files are just dumped into libraries without labels or defined ownership, they tend to be forgotten, but not by AI. AI will never forget in this instance. These abandoned files can contain outdated or sensitive information that gets pulled into prompts unexpectedly as well. So what's the key takeaway here? These issues don't stem from bad intent. They come from default settings, user habits, and lack of visibility. But when you add AI into the mix or Copilot, they amplify all these defaults. Suddenly that forgotten file, misconfigured site, or loose permission becomes an active part of your organization's knowledge graph. And again, the good news is these risks are obviously solvable. Use Microsoft Purview to audit and classify content, apply SharePoint Advanced Management to enforce sharing controls, and educate your users on what public and everyone actually means when they're sharing, and adopt those sensitivity labels as a standard practice. And by tackling these patterns, you not only secure your data, you'll also make Copilot more useful, more relevant, and safer to adopt at scale. So then SharePoint Advanced Management, I'll just talk about this one. So what is SharePoint Advanced Management? So you can think of your SharePoint and OneDrive like a big community library. Over the years, it's filled with documents, some useful, some outdated, and some that maybe shouldn't be available to everybody, like all the things we mentioned before. And now you can think of Copilot as that new powerful librarian that could search everything and bring it to everybody instantly. But again, if your library is messy, too open, Copilot can surface all that old content like we mentioned before. So what is SharePoint Advanced Management, or SAM for short? SAM is an advanced set of tools built into Microsoft 365. It doesn't replace SharePoint. It instead gives IT teams and organizations a smarter way to manage sites, documents, and permissions. It helps you see where your content might be overshared, like when a folder is accidentally open to everybody. It automatically flags old or unused sites that are just taking up space or creating confusion, and it can limit what Copilot sees. So again, all these things we talked about Copilot and what it can access, actual SharePoint Advanced Management is the solution to help you deal with all this in a quick and timely fashion as well. So again, it's about you having trust in your AI by deploying tools to help keep it in check as well. So again, maybe over the years you built up hundreds of SharePoint sites, many are inactive, but maybe still accessible. Again, SAM will automatically identify these and let you know about them. It can prevent you oversharing, it can detect all those files and folders, control Copilot's access, and manage that content lifecycle, so it can review and archive old content automatically for you. But this only keeps your SharePoint tidy. Not only keeps your SharePoint tidy, but also ensures compliance. Again, when we're talking about we have to keep files for 7 years and things like that. So for an example, let's imagine you're preparing a report on a donor funding. Without SAM, Copilot might actually pull numbers from an outdated spreadsheet stored in an old project folder that no one even remembers. With SAM in place, those old sites would be archived, irrelevant files wouldn't appear, and you'd only see accurate, up-to-date information. And that's not just helpful, it builds confidence in your tools and in the reports you share with leadership and stakeholders. So to sum up then, SAM keeps your environment clean and organized. It protects sensitive information. It makes Copilot smarter and more trustworthy. It's always a good thing. And for nonprofits, where every resource counts, this is about working smarter, staying secure, and freeing up your time to focus on what matters most, and that's your mission. So then finally, from me here, Microsoft Purview, again, just give you a little bit of an overview about what this is here. The new security reality, okay, we're living in a time where tools like Copilot, AI-powered apps, everything, it's all changing the way we work, and it's changing so rapidly now. Generating reports, analyzing data, drafting grant applications, it's all become a lot easier. But again, all this, if we don't keep on top of it now, will so quickly get away from us. And it's about, getting around to doing that spring cleaning of your environment, thinking about what's important to us as a business, and start to take put things in place to make sure that this is handled the way it needs to be. So with Purview, we've got data loss prevention, DLP, stop sensitive information from being copied, pasted, or uploaded into risky places. We've got AI activity monitoring, gives us visibility into what's being shared with AI tools inside or outside of Microsoft. We have our sensitivity labels and classification that we mentioned before to automatically find and tag information. So it can automatically go and find driving license information, national insurance numbers, inform you and tag it for us. Investigation and risk response. If something slips through, you can see exactly what happened, why it happened, and what actions you can take to prevent it in the future. And again, trust is everything. We're working with personal stories, donor gifts, and sometimes vulnerable communities. And Purview is the application within Microsoft 365 that helps us keep all this in check. So just bear with me 1 second. So we'll quickly go into then what do we see. So I mentioned a lot of this before, all the things that we see all the time, phishing attacks constantly, all the time, in the thousands. these need to be blocked before they get to the user wherever possible. So you need security tools in place to be able to help the end user not have to worry about whether these are genuine or bad actors. GDPR content being shared by unencrypted email, it's another one we see. We also, whenever we're doing vulnerability scans, it's usually quite alarming that we don't know what's actually happening in our environment, what content is actually being stored on our laptops and being shared out. We're actually able to go in and see this. And again, files being accessed from other countries. Again, links that have been shared, files that have been shared and forgotten about, and we see all this happening in our environment, especially attacks coming from other countries that we shouldn't even be doing business in. Again, it's very easy to set controls in place in our environment to say that our environment cannot be accessed from countries where we don't operate. Unauthorized applications being installed on endpoint shadow IT. Again, if users have admin credentials on their laptop and they can install that Netflix app that we didn't know about, or again, any of these AI tools that we've never even heard of, again, we need to make sure that we know what's happening in our environment at all times and being able to prevent those applications from running unless we've authorized them. And again, suspicious login attempts. Again, we may see an account being accessed where it normally is from an office in London, for example, and then 5 minutes later, somebody's trying to access that same account from New Zealand, for example. It's called impossible travel. And again, we need to put things in place to stop these happening. So again, these are just 5 things that we see that kind of just happen all the time. But again, if you have any questions for us later, please do let us know. And I think that's it from my side then, Hugh. Back over to you.
Thanks, Matt. I'll try and rattle through the rest. So I guess about a little bit more about us for those of you who don't know. So we're primarily a Middle Eastern company, with a significant presence in countries like Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon, and we've got now a growing presence in the UK, Ireland, and the USA as well. So we do a lot of work with charities, particularly here in the UK. And one of our kind of core missions here is being able to give back to the charitable sector and to kind of help the sector out. And really, this kind of why this matters for you is we want you to be able to do things like protect your donations, free up your team, improve your outcomes, and be ready for your own growth. We think that IT should be about empowering missions and not distracting from it, regardless of what sector you operate in. We want charities to be able to access exactly the same technology innovations that white collar institutions can have as well. And so when we think about what do charities need from an IT provider, we think about proactive security and compliance, which we've covered quite a lot in this presentation. We also think about the strategic guidance, which you can get through somebody like Matt. We think you should be able to have fast and reliable support. We think that should be open to everybody. And we're pretty well accredited in terms of the Microsoft space. So we can point to a huge amount of badges and engineering skill set if you need any of that for reassurance. And there's a lot of charities that you can see here that we do work with. Some of these are names that you'll certainly recognize. We do have a lot more. We just didn't want to fit them all onto one slide. So hopefully everybody found today useful. If there are any further questions, if you can drop them into the Q&A, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, yeah, thanks everybody for your time, and we will be in touch with next steps.